And all right, we are live on Pantheon Radio. Sweet. All right, well, man, I don't even know where to start. It's kind of a boring, non-productive, wasn't really a lot going on today, it seemed like. What do we talk about as far as Pantheon goes? Oh, so I did wake up this morning to, I don't know, like everything happening in the world. So let's talk about the newsletter. Let's talk about Brad. Let's talk about Joppa. Let's talk about the RSV and meet and greet. Let's talk about Sunday, the stream coming up with Co Carnage. Let's talk about the Pantheon Radio competition. Let's talk about me and Maul and our Twitch streams that we're trying to get promoted and set up here. Let's talk about everything today. I don't know. And then we'll end it tonight with what we got coming up later on this week and next week. So, I don't know, guys. I think I've had a good day today. I don't know about y'all, but if you're listening on Pantheon Radio or on Twitch, hopefully you've had a good day. It's been exciting for me. Again, we've had a lot of things go on. So I'm going to go ahead and get started off with a few announcements just to get people up to speed on what's been happening. And this is non-newsletter related, so we'll get to that in a minute. But just so everybody's aware, I'm going to go ahead and remind you, the Pantheon Radio competition is still ongoing until March 30th. If you haven't already submitted a spoof commercial or a script for that, go do so. Some really cool stuff out there that I've heard so far on Pantheon Radio. I don't know if you've heard of, but they do an amazing job with taking those scripts and then putting those in play on the radio. I mean, it's actually very entertaining, very well done, production quality. So if you've got an idea for a script, go out there. I believe they're going to be posting a example of what they've got so far out there on that site. So that's pantheon.com or pantheonradio.com/compo, COMPO. And I'm hoping they're going to get an example up for us here soon. So be aware of that. Go ahead and start getting that script ready. Send that in. Maybe win an Echo Dot or a heat changing mug, something like that. And then as well, contribute back to the community by, giving a little fun in that. And then on top of that, we are streaming live, of course, on Pantheon Radio. So if you're not following Pantheon Radio on Twitter, make sure you hit them up at Pantheon_radio. And then as for myself, you can always find me at Sacred TV on Twitter or on Twitch with /Sacred, SAICRED. And then we also have the one and only Muldoon on here. So Maul, can you go ahead and plug your stream real quick for everybody if they want to follow you on Twitch?
Hey guys, yeah, it's Muldoon, twitch.tv/Muldoon, or excuse me, MRPD Muldoon. Can't even say my name this week. Let's see if you can spell yours this week.
I got mine.
Yeah,
I got mine.
MRPD Muldoon.
First time, but I got it. It's happened.
Congratulations.
All right. Well, so first I'm going to go ahead and start out this. So just so everyone's aware, we do this podcast every Wednesday and Friday at 10:30 to 11:30 Eastern Standard Time. This Friday, however, we are going to be taking off, take a little break. So we will not be on this Friday, but we're going to come back next Wednesday strong with Temmi from YouTube. I don't know if anybody's seen her lore videos, but they're amazing. I love them myself. I've learned a lot from her. So we're definitely going to be coming back with her. I'm excited about that on next Wednesday to talk a little bit about lore and Pantheon. And I think it's going to be a great follow-up to this week's newsletter episode that we have going on right now. So I'll remind you of that we're not having the stream on Friday or not having the podcast on Friday. And I'll remind you that we're doing the lore episode with Temmi next Wednesday at the end of the podcast here. But just keep that in your back of your mind. So let's go ahead and get into what everyone wants to hear about, the newsletter. So I know I had a chance to read it. I know Maul had a chance to read it. And I got to start out by saying there was a few things that were announced even before you got into the newsletter that are pretty cool to me. One being Brad and Chris, or Joppa, as others know him. And then, of course, everyone knows Brad, but Erdun. They're going to be looking to play with a few people at PAX. So, first thing you need to do, if you're going to PAX East, go ahead, get onto the PantheonMMO.com site, and find the newsletter, find the link, and respond to that as soon as possible. Very limited seating, but you get a chance to play with Brad and Chris themselves at PAX East. So I don't know about you, but I mean, that to me sounds like a blast. I would love that opportunity.
Cool.
Yeah, that's so cool. So I'm jealous of anyone who gets a chance to go do that. But guys, you got to do it quick because there's very, very limited seating. So definitely make sure you get on that as soon as possible. And then also the Thursday night, they're doing it at the Asgard Irish Pub, if I'm not mistaken, in Cambridge. They're doing a meet and greet. So if you haven't already RSVP'd to that, it's also probably going to be pretty limited. It's just a informal meet and greet, but they're going to be doing that. All the devs are going to be there. Again, Brad's going to be there with everybody hanging out. So it's going to be a great time. You know it is. They're all going to be just kind of geeking out before they get into the full swing of PAX East. So excited for everyone who gets a chance to go to that as well. That's not part, so you don't have to have tickets to PAX East to get into that. That is just an informal event outside of PAX East at the Asgard Irish Pub. So make sure, if you haven't already, check that out. If you can make it there, make sure you RSVP so they know who's coming. They can make arrangements, you know, proper seating, things like that. Hopefully they have enough room for everybody. But that's just something, again, it's so exciting to see these developers and Brad and all these guys stepping out to really get in touch with the community and just, you know, get to meet people. I think that's awesome. I really do. I'm a huge fan of what their work is so far, and I'm jealous everybody gets to go see that. So with that, there's only one more announcement that I have, and then we'll get into the newsletter. And I don't know if everybody saw this, but this Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern, we have CoCarnage and the developers meeting back up once again for another pre-alpha stream. So I have become a personal lifelong fan of CoCarnage from what he's done in the past streams. I think he's done a phenomenal job. I remember in December, I was worried about him coming on as a streamer and streaming the game. I didn't know how that was going to work or turn out. And I got to tell you, I know we had in December, we actually had the developers streaming on their site on Twitch, and we had CoCarnage streaming on his. And the developers had a little bit of a hiccup, and we all had to go over to CoCarnage for a minute there. And I remember staying on CoCarnage's stream because the way he was looking around the map, what he was focusing on, the way that he interacted and played the game was very much what I wanted to see. He was looking at a lot of the details, a lot of the little small things. He was wandering around. He was being curious. And I love that, you know, opening things up, you know, looking around. I love the curiosity that he showed. And it really helped us, you know, as gamers, because we're all very curious about what's going on and all the little knickknacks here. So I was very, very happy that. What's that?
I just want to, on that point, I want them to mess with him in the future. I want them to make traps and all kinds of stuff. Since he's so nosy.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Look at that stuff. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, no, that would be awesome. Like, I mean, I think if I'm not mistaken, didn't in the newsletter we read something about like potentially having traps and stuff in the game? I know it's been in the past we've heard stuff about that. I don't see why they couldn't throw one in there. Hey, go check that out, Co. So, yeah, I love that idea. All right, so I'm good with my announcements. I think that's it. Like I said, guys, make sure you're signing up for the to play with Brad, play with Chris. Make sure RSVP over to the meet and greet at the pub, and then make sure you're tuned in Sunday 2 p.m. for a pre-alpha stream with CoCarnage and the devs. And then let's jump into the newsletter. So, Maul, I'm gonna let you kick it off, buddy. I've been talking for 10 minutes straight. I'm running out of air. Save me. Where do we start with the armor?
I don't believe that you know how to run out of air. I don't think it's possible. But yeah, I guess I'm feeling a little shady tonight. Sorry. The newsletter, honestly, was just a bunch of fake Lay's potato chip flavors for like an hour and a half. It was a lot of fun to read.
Barbecue or not?
But no, more like peppered bourlong and pears.
Ooh,
it was just stuff like that. Yeah, really delicious and pretty good. No, I want to say that I think probably there were two really big pieces of the newsletter that came out. And I don't know which one's going to be a bigger deal to people, but one's about Howner Cave's the first dungeon that they want to reveal, a low-level dungeon. I was actually kind of excited to see some of the lore behind that too. But I think the bigger one for me is armor, because I have to say, I guess I have a little bit of character vanity in me, and the way that they plan to do armor, I think, is consistent with how it was done in EverQuest, but it will be so much more beautiful and take really good advantage of their engine, their graphics. I'm pretty excited about that. I guess we could get into some concrete details about that, but did you have any general comments about that before we go on?
So I'll save the looks comment that I have. Well, you know what? I'll go ahead and say it because I think it's going to lead into what you just said there with the looks. I actually took a friend that doesn't follow Pantheon very closely and showed him the newsletter. And I took some of the screenshots and I showed him the screenshots and I was like, hey, look at these screenshots they released. And he goes, man, those look really good. But you know, the cinematics always look better than the actual gameplay. And I was like, oh, really? So I sent Brad a tweet and I said, hey, Brad, this is my friend said this is cinematics. Can you help me with this? And Brad responded back and he said some cool things like what's coming up potentially, maybe some hot videos to show off and things like that. But he also did mention and made sure that it was very clear, this is live gameplay. This is from actual gameplay. And I was like, hey man, look, I just want to make sure you see this, I see this. What you think is cinematics is truly the gameplay. This is just them playing the game. That took some
clapback on Twitter.
Yeah.
Trouble.
Yeah. So, but I loved it, man. It was beautiful. The art, the things that they're showing off. You know, the graphics, the detail is amazing. So, yeah, I'm right there with you. I think that's a really big staple for me is the looks of the game. And, you know, into the armor, we go with you.
Okay, yeah, and I think there's so much content about it. With Hound Cave, I mean, we should definitely touch on that, but there's a lot of content on that. But I think we could safely cover all the armor stuff without running out of time.
Oh, yeah.
There's some juicy bits here. Probably my favorite aspect of the whole armor reveal is that although you may not at any given time have a full set of armor that looks reasonably together, but if you spend enough time farming for it, you could, and that the armor only looks better and better and better as you level up. And that's kind of how it should be. I think that by the time you're level 50, which I imagine, I think that's, I don't know if I can't remember if that's an announced official level cap that they're aiming for it, but I think it's highly assumed or it's been alluded to a lot. But by the time you're 50, you're just max level, I guess I could say. That you're looking pretty shiny, pretty crazy looking, and that excites me. Little segue here. The reason why I even have my eye on the cleric is because I loved cleric in EverQuest because I could wear that shiny armor and look really important, standing there throwing spells. And I think that would look really cool. Looking through it, I thought there was one thing. Oh, the cold arc steel.
Ooh, yes,
Armor
yes.
type. I mean, I hate to kind of skip to it, but that was the one thing that kind of threw me for a loop because if you'd asked me about armor before this reveal even came out, I'd say, well, I imagine it's like this and that and that and that and that. And it was pretty consistent with what they announced, but Cold Arc Steel is a new armor type that they're currently accounting for. They're wanting to make it special, specific, and involve high-end crafting and be really special and different looking. I don't believe that there was an image for it. No, there was not. But it sounds like they want to go outside of the typical 4 types of armor, which is plate, chain, leather, and cloth. Now, of course, Cold Arc Steel could be incorporated, I guess, through all the tiers. Maybe it could be like cloth that has Cold Arc Steel, you know, embroidered into it and things like that to give it different properties. Don't know if it has magical arcane properties or what really. I don't know that they went into that much detail, but that was kind of cool. But they threw a little tidbit, a little bone of, yeah, and we're not just doing the regular stuff. We've got some kind of cooking on that. What did you think about it?
Well, I gotta say, so the first thing that came to mind when I thought of Cold Arc Steel was the Forge and Amber Fate that we saw in the December stream with, if I'm not mistaken, it was Fatesmith Bastion's Anvil that we saw. And they mentioned that even to get to this anvil, you've got to be acclimatized to not only frozen cold, you know, wind to get into Amber Fate itself, but then you have to be acclimatized to scorching to get down into the forge area. And then you have to potentially be in good grace with Fatesmith himself to use his anvil. And I think of this anvil and I'm like, man, I just see this being where you would potentially make some cold dark steel armor or something like that. You know, something that's deep in some, you know, obscure dungeon where you got to really work to even get there to make something. And I don't know, man. I picture that. I picture the armor itself when they talk about that ice and stone. Oh man, I don't know. I see a blue, maybe some dark blue in there. Just something. I don't even know. Are we talking light or dark blue? I don't know. I'm seeing blue for some reason. I guess with the ice, the water, maybe coming to mind. But then the stone makes me believe maybe a little bit darker or something. That would be my preference. But if it's lighter, I don't care. I think it's going to look good regardless. But I think it's going to add a little flavor like that ice and stone. I think it's going to be colored a little bit. The rest of the armor in the game, you know, without that mystical fusion, potentially not so much colored. So this is hopefully going to really stand out as, you know, an eye pop when you're walking around, when you're showing it off. You got that breastplate on, you know, like we saw in the old EQ. You talk about the clerics. What was it? Purple armor that clerics wore?
Yeah, Ethereal Mist. I love that armor.
Yeah. And it stood out. I mean, you would see it from a mile away and you would go, I know that's a cleric. So I love the idea of that myself. But, you know, like you said, I think the story they unveiled as well, going from that rags to riches, really just giving you some really nasty looking grungy stuff to start with, and then allowing you to build up to something that actually looks like you want to wear it towards the end, so that, you know, hopefully when you see those higher level players, you're like, wow, that looks good. I want that. I am so tired of wearing this busted up, you know, taped together piece of mail that I've got on. I want some of that cold dark steel armor that I see somebody walking around with. But on that note, go ahead.
And on that, I'm just going to make a little cheeky remark here, because leave it to me. I thought that the rags that they were kind of showing off kind of had a prominent package from the mail model. I thought that was a little much. I was like, I feel very attacked right now. It was like a lot. I was just like, well, I mean, that's cool. And I know this is like so off topic and so bizarre, but as a gay man, I've always thought, man, they really love to take care of the female models, but they barely do anything for the guy models. And not that I need that, but that it didn't look realistic. It was very Ken doll versus like nude Barbie type of concept. So I thought that was cool. That kind of stuck out to me. But then as I got over that, I looked at what it was wearing, and even that rags look looked really fun. I was like, yeah. I would love to have a character that looks crazy like that. It's basically Aladdin,
yeah,
running around like level 4 trying to, you know, get anything to cover my bulge and like protect my nethers and like give me a little bit more protected than what I'm looking at. But I thought it was a really cool look, so, even for rags.
So you're saying they overcompensated?
No comment.
All right.
I'm not saying anything. Nope, just pointing out that I thought it was pretty funny to see a package right from my child.
So you were going on, what were you going to ask there?
Oh, I was going to ask you what you thought about. So they asked about. It's not of critical importance to me, but like role-playing armor, suits of armor, things that you can wear just to be standing around town looking formal, like if you're going to a wedding and stuff like that. And it looks like they kind of included what that might look like, or at least something that's more decorative or like costumey.
Yeah, no, I like that. I think, if I'm not mistaken, when we saw the making of Making the City video, it looked very similar to what Kokarnos was wearing at that point in time. And I really like the way it looks. I mean, again, more decorative, more, you know, it pops, but it's not something that's I don't think you would see somebody out in the bush, you know, running around in a type thing. So I think they're kind of going with that theme. I believe the word that they used was like a believable fantasy type of mindset that they're looking to do. So, you know, I like the way they're going with that, the direction they're going with that. It's not so much making it cartoony. It's more making it realistic and more, you know, like, I don't know, I guess for those role players, they're really hopefully going to be attuned to what they're trying to do here. They're really trying to give them something to work with. So hopefully that works for them. I'm not a role player myself, but I'm really hoping that these role players see that and give them credit where credit's due, because I think they're trying to, you know, give them something to utilize, and they're not trying to make it where it takes flavor away from the game itself as a whole, but they're trying to make it to where it feels like it's supposed to be there. And that means a lot to me, you know, as an adventurer, as somebody who's really not into role playing, but really wanting to be pulled into the game and sucked into that immersion factor. You know, I would hate to just be walking around and see somebody with a giant pair of wings on, you know, that's, I don't know, with some halos flapping around or something like that. I just, you know, or somebody dressed up like as a Cupid, you know, running around like a miniskirt. Then I don't.
Are you talking about your Fortnite character?
I mean, I might be.
It sounds like you are.
But again, that's what I don't want to see. I love that they're bringing that, still that same flavor, that believable fantasy into, you know, potentially allowing some things for role players as well to use. So I think that's a great compromise, I guess you could say. I know there's been a lot of discussion on cosmetic gear versus adventure gear and things like that. So I do see, you know, there's a very, I guess you could say, there's a crowd out there for it. There is people that want that, people that really appreciate that and would use that. So I think that it's definitely something that's worthwhile, and I'm glad they're taking the time to actually make it meaningful within the game, and not, you know, I guess again taking away flavor or taking away what the game is really bringing to life for me.
I agree. And before we move on to, I guess, probably the meat and potatoes, like the game defining aspect of that armor reveal, what do you hope for as far as like, I want to as a character look a certain way, but I want to keep the armor that I'm wearing. It has stats on it, but I want to look different. How do you feel about that? Where like there's almost a slot that's in the armor that you could just put a cosmetic piece of armor, like if it comes from a cash shop, or you get it just along the way, or it's another piece of armor you want it to look like. How do you feel about that?
So I know as soon as I heard it, I know people are going to point it out, and I know we've talked about this in previous, as far as cash shop goes, guys, we've talked about it, and we both have different opinions on what whether a cash shop would be good or not. So I will say, for me, I wouldn't want to buy anything from a cash shop first off, but I know that your opinion is, why not? For me, what I would like to see is, if I had to have a cosmetic versus adventure look, I would personally like to see it where it's almost like you open your inventory up and it's just another tab, and that other tab you can then either have it to display or not. Because for me, there would be my normal tab, my normal look, but then maybe there's a cosmetic appearance tab, and it has the same slots for the same, you know, items and things like that, where I can interchange things out. I can put on different rings, different robes, different headdress, you know, different shoes, things like that. And again, it's all on that one tab, so I have it right there in front of me. I have all the different slots that are available, and then I can basically turn that on or off whether I want to see it or not. For me though, I would never use that, so I'd love to have it separate where I don't have to see it when I'm playing most of the time. And if I never want to go to that tab, I never have to go to that tab. But if I want to go to that tab, if one day something comes up and, you know, let's say we as a guild have a big guild event meeting and we all want to look alike in the city for some odd reason. We just all want to throw on some robes and go running around the city dancing for one night because we're having fun. And or we want to go fishing and we all want to, you know, wear some, I don't know, some weird looking costume to go fishing in or something like that. Why not? I mean, I think it could be fun to have something, you know, available to you if that day ever comes. For me, originally, you know, I'm definitely on the side of I won't use it 99% of the time. But if that time ever comes where we're having like a festival event, a holiday or something like that, where it's just a fun day, everyone's having a good time, then why not have something like that where I don't have to really go out and take all my gear off or switch all my gear around. I can just go to the cosmetic tab, throw some things in there, you know, make myself look that way, and then turn it on to where I can see other people's little, you know, cosmetic appeal as well. I think that would be neat.
Yeah, I complete agreement here. I think it could be easily a separate tab, turn it on or off, whatever you want to do. I personally am very for it because I like to look different sometimes. I did kind of respect somewhere in the newsletter, they mentioned like, oh, you could look at a piece of item and know exactly what it was, where it came from, and be like, wow, that's a really nice breastplate. And so on that vein, what happens when you get a better piece of armor? Wouldn't it be cool if you could just make your breastplate that you got that's better look cosmetically like the one that people actually really like, and it's something you like more? So I'm for it. I see some disagreement already in the Twitch stream, but I think it's inevitable. I think that they will probably pursue that, especially since they're putting so much work into what the
Yeah.
armor looks like. There will undoubtedly be some kind of cosmetic look system.
Yeah. Well, and on
Before we
that
leave the
note,
armor, oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, I just want to say on that note though, and like I said, I don't think it's gonna be forced upon players. I really don't. I think it's gonna be one of those things where people can choose, like you said, if you're walking down the road there, you're walking down a path, and you see somebody walk by you, man, you can look at that breastplate and you go, I know what that breastplate is. Whether it's on a halfling, an ogre, doesn't matter. I know what that breastplate is. You know, that's the best in slot for this particular, from this particular area type of breastplate. It's top tier. That thing is, it took him time, effort to get that breastplate. And I believe from a player's perspective, I want to see that breastplate. I don't want to see the cosmetic look. So I believe that from what I've seen and read, and I've seen a lot of the discussions on the forums, of course, I've read through all of those. I think the best option for me would be to be able to turn that to where I don't see the cosmetic appeal when I don't want to. But like I said, if I ever wanted to just turn it on, I would love to just have the option to flip the switch and see all the craziness that unfolds before me. Hopefully it'll still look and feel as though it's supposed to be in the game, of course, but it'll definitely change the way the game looks and the way people are. Again, around the marketplace, you might have a lot of people that are very low level, maybe even just role players or crafters that really aren't into adventuring, but they're able to gain some cosmetic appeal. For me, as somebody who just wants to see the adventure side of the house, I may see them in their most, raggedy clothes 99% of the time. And then all of a sudden, one day we have a festive activity or a big, celebration of, I don't know, an anniversary of a Pantheon release or something. I may decide to flip the cosmetic switch on for that night, run around and act crazy with all those guys. And they may have a lot of cosmetic appeal to them, something like that. So I would like to have the ability to turn it to where I don't see it all the time. I want to see that breastplate and I want it to be meaningful. I want to see those rags. I want to see those riches type deal. But then again, having that option, I think, like you said, it's going to happen in my opinion. I think it's going to happen. I don't think that, I think there's enough of a longing for it that they wouldn't let those, role players, those fans down in that sense. But who knows? We never know at this point.
Yeah, agreed. And before we move on to the actual stat aspect of the armor, you kind of touched on the idea of like crafters or people who aren't really big into adventuring. This particular announcement may not be very salient to them because they would like to see crafting armor or things like that. I imagine that they're going to work on that type of stuff. Final Fantasy 14 makes their crafters and their gatherers look very, very that. A chef, like a culinarian, actually has a chef hat and like an apron. I mean, they look like a cook. And so it
Interesting.
would be really cool if Pantheon does the same thing. At least, in era like in Final Fantasy 14, it's a little less. It is realistic and believable fantasy, but it's more fantasy than believable. In this case, I would like to see something a little bit more believable than fantasy and Pantheon. But I think they could very much do that and create armor and interesting looks for any aspect and sphere of the game.
Didn't they and I know this isn't Vanguard 2.0 or EverQuest 2.0, but I believe in Vanguard they had the diplomat system, and a part of the diplomacy system is like when you actually started doing the diplomacy, it changed your outfit to make you look more like a diplomat. I know I saw that in a stream that they did, so I think that that's actually very interesting. I never thought about it like that for the crafting system itself. If you're going to become some sort of crafter and you're mastering that skill, if while doing that activity you have the look for it, I don't know. That's a thought that I never had before, but that's neat. That's interesting.
Well, I hope it works out because I plan to do a lot of crafting. I would like to look like a blacksmith or like a Fletcher,
Yeah.
like a whatever. It'd be pretty cool. Um, I think probably the most important thing that came out of the newsletter for me, and I think we will see no disagreement. I don't think anybody who read the letter thought this is a horrible idea. Their Visionary Realms is going with a paradigm that they want to start very small in stats. They wanted to not have a crazy power creep situation. So they're talking about what your first statted armor is going to look like. It may only have one strength, but that one strength is significant. And I think that is a huge plus. I think that shows some responsibility for the developers to make sure that the game has longevity and to make sure that it doesn't get out of control real quick where they're having to redesign the system in the future. I think it shows that they hear the community, because I think the community has been very vocal about this, not specifically at Visionary Realms developers, not specifically at any entity, but I want to say the whole MMO community involving anybody, anywhere. They hate power creep. Just hate it. There's benefits to it. It's fun. It's cute to go to past dungeons. You're like crazy powerful, whatever. But for the vast majority of gamers, for the ongoing nature of a game, they want power creep to be at a minimum. And I think that was a really exciting announcement in the letter.
Yeah, well, on a side note, just so the fans are pleased, Maul, they want to know how long it took you to grow your beard.
So I started growing it in September. I grow hair very quickly on my face, like crazy. I have like none on my head at all. And I have cut this down like 4 times, and it's already this long. Like it's crazy. So I will go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think of that commercial where the guy like grunts and he just starts growing the beard out. It took you like 30 seconds to just I don't know if you've ever seen it or not, but
Nope, I didn't feel anything.
All right. Well, so back to Pantheon. Sorry, I thought that was funny. It caught me off guard there.
I was about to respond, but yeah.
So I lost my place here. I don't know what we're talking about even in Pantheon.
We're talking about the stat system and how power creep is very low in the situation, very small stats on armor. What do you think?
So for me, I think, okay, seeing and hearing that they have lowered the stats overall and they want to make that +1 meaningful is by far one of the most pleasant things to read ever for me, because I see it in almost every MMO. I think WoW is a good example right now. We see it coming to where they've gotten to a point now where the stats are so inflated and all the numbers are so crazy that, if I'm not mistaken, with the next expansion coming out, they're cutting them down by like ×10, like, or divided by 10. It's or even more so. I'm sorry. It's like one person I was watching went from like 12 million to 26,000 health or something like that. I mean, that's a huge difference, because again, now the stats that you're seeing have value. It's not just a huge number that really, for example, if I have a number and it's 10 difference from the other one, that's going to be very, very meaningful. That's going to be a huge benefit or negative when it comes to Pantheon. I mean, that's definitely making me think about the piece of gear, what it's providing. And for me, I like to be able to sit down and really think about it without having to read through hundreds and hundreds of numbers. I like numbers, don't get me wrong, but I don't want to be sitting there, trying to pull out a calculator to divide, the millions of different numbers that I have there on the page to figure out what the best possible, number is down to the last, fraction. Especially if I see somebody hit, okay, so for example, when I think of it, I think of like health. If I had like 50 health, and I got a piece of armor that gave me 5 health, that's a huge difference. It's a huge perk. But if I had 500 health and I got something that gave me 5 health, I might be able to put something else there that doesn't really matter. So yeah. Again, I love that, it's simplistic, it's clean in my opinion. It adds more value to each one of the stats. You don't have to have a piece of gear that has 40+ strength and 50+ armor and all this craziness at level 2. To matter. You can have something that gives you 1 strength at level 10 and you're like, wow, I can notice the difference. I see it. I feel it when I'm playing the game. That's the type of thing that I would like to see. A lot of the MMOs started out that way, and then eventually they get, like you said, they get to the point where it's almost like they've gone too far and they can't go back. Or they have to do just something big, drastic to make it swing it all back.
Totally. And to touch on a point you just made, being able to see and feel it, I think probably my biggest criticism of every single game out there that I've played in memory has a very a kind of a hidden stat system. Like even if the power creep felt right, even if the percentage increase in a stat felt correct, what does that stat do? What does it actually impact, and how much of an impact did it have? Did I see my damage go up? Am I actually dodging more attacks? Am I a beefier tank? Stats that made very little sense to me were like AC and EverQuest. I just had to trust that it was working. I had to trust that it was correct. But with things like health, you can see the difference. It's so visible right in front of you. I would want the stat system in Pantheon to be that visible too. That way, it has an even bigger impact whenever you're looking at one strength. Wow, that's really awesome. One strength is 10% of the strength I have now. I now have 11 strength. Well, what does that do for my attacks? Does that add 2 damage? Does it add no damage? Like, am I trying to figure out why do I even build strength? I think that's really important too.
Yeah. Oh, no, yeah, that's perfectly put, because I think that that's the biggest thing for me. When I get a new item, a new piece of gear, when I get something that I'm excited about, I'm like, oh, it's new, it's better. I want to be able to put it on and notice some sort of difference. And I believe when you're going with numbers, you know, as low as they mentioned, I think they mentioned, what was it, from 80 to 8, they cut down the stats there. You know, so you're talking, instead of it taking, hopefully, you know, instead of it taking 10 strength, now it takes 1. I'm hoping that when that 1 strength hits, you're excited about that 1 strength and you feel it, so that when you, like you said, when you attack, you can see the difference in your attacks, or you can look at, I don't know, how much you can carry or something like that, and you can see the number change and fluctuate. You can actually visibly see that and feel that. So yeah, I'm right there with you. I think that that's a huge piece of the game. You want to have that new gear when you're excited about it, when you put it on for the first time. You want to have it mean something to you more than just a look. You want to be able to feel it and see the benefit of, you know, all the hard work that you put in to get that particular item. So moving on from that piece, I would like to talk about armor sets themselves. Now, I believe, reading through the forums and things of that nature, I kind of got the hint that we were going to see armor sets, you know, at some degree. But I think I got a little bit better feel for it here. And I really like the direction they went with the armor sets, meaning that they talk about them being something that's meaningful. You're going to have gear that kind of looks similar. You can mix and match a lot of your gear, but to get a complete set, if you really want a complete set, to get that complete set, it's going to, you know, require potential time, effort. It's going to be meaningful. I'm hoping to see that these armor sets not only really stand out, like if you had the full armor set, I'm hoping that it not only really stands out, but I'm curious, and I don't know if I read this or not. I'll have to go back and double check, but I didn't write it down in my notes here when I was going through it. I didn't read anything about like an armor set bonus.
No, I don't believe anything like that was mentioned.
I don't either, and
I love those. Yeah, I mean, it's like an additional incentive to collect it all.
Absolutely. Well, especially if you have different mixed match armor that looks similar in nature, you know, you're not really going for the look for, say, you know, you're going to stand out once you get a few of those items, you know, a few of the key items, maybe the helmet, the breastplate, the legs, like a few of those key items, you might stand out already as really having some top tier high end armor. But to really utilize it, to really having that incentive to go get that very last piece, I do like the idea of a set bonus, or something that once you combine, let's say it's Cold Arc Steel. It's fused. It's this mystical fused armor, and when I put the entire set together and it's all connected and everything is, you know, kind of, well, it almost like welds itself together, and it does something that increases, I don't know, armor. I have a clue. I'm just throwing things out there off the top of my head right now. But again, where potentially these mythical sets of armor, once you bring them all together, they have some sort of, you know, combined power, or maybe they have some sprinklings of some sort of mythical dust or powder on them or something like that, that once you have enough of the set on, you're now able to benefit from that. When if you just had one piece on or two pieces, you know, that particular, it's almost like I'm just, this is, I know this is off the wall, guys, but bear with me. If you had like one piece of you had gloves and they had pixie dust on them. We'll say Tinkerbell came by and put some little sprinkles on your gloves. Well, you know, your gloves might have some pixie dust on them. No big deal. But once you have that full set and you got the pixie dust on all of it, well, then now you've got enough to really make a difference, you know, for you as a person, a player. With all the armor combined, it's able to actually do something meaningful. So that set bonus, to me, again, like you said, it allows you to want to go and find the rest of it, want to explore, want to really grind it out potentially, and you know, struggle to get that last piece in that obscure dungeon or, you know, back alley of somewhere. I like that myself. I really do.
I agree. Also, we've been corrected. Apparently, it was in the newsletter. I just don't remember seeing it.
What's
they
that?
confirmed that yes, they will have set bonuses.
Oh, okay. I thought I read it and I was like, man, I didn't write it down, so maybe I didn't. Sweet.
Yeah. You probably knew that, and I guess I didn't remember reading it, but yeah, they'll have set bonuses. They're going to be lore based. There's going to be a reason they do what they do. Hopefully that means it won't be like just plus 10 strength, but it might mean like decreased falling damage or you know, ability to be in hot conditions, or rain doesn't do certain things to your attack speed, you know, stuff like that. That would be kind of cool.
Well, I mean, speaking of that, though, they talked about situational gear. I mean, if I think of an armor set, situational gear, they talked about it's going to be more than just a resist gear. Talking, you know, it's going to, you know, climate's going to be involved in that, the atmosphere. And they talked about the phonetic floor atmosphere, which I thought was really cool. I don't know why, but I have in my mind, and again, this happens to me all the time. I have it somewhere in the back of my mind that I've heard a reference to something like that before, and I'm going to have to go dig through my notes to see if I've ever come across anything like that. But it just seems like I've heard something like that before at some place, so maybe I'm making that up. However, hearing that, again, I'm putting all this together in my head. I'm trying to come up with, you know, theory crafting with, or I'm trying to come up with some theories on this. I'm trying to really process what all this could mean, and looking at armor sets, looking at situational gear, talking about it being more than resist, talking about the climate system, the atmosphere, being involved in that, what it could mean, what it could all combine. They talked about maybe a relic or some boots, you know, and I think, well, why not, if it's going to be one piece for one type of atmosphere, why not have it to where a you know, particular climate or atmosphere requires you to have almost a full set to be successful at any point in time. So I don't know. Again, I think that they had a lot in here, very juicy. I'm going to sit here and mull it over for days and days and days, and I'm very excited about it. And then I'm gonna switch it over real quick though, because I know we're getting close to that timeline, and I wanted to bring up one other thing. And they talked about crafting, and they talked about, and if I'm not mistaken, it was mentioned. And I'm gonna go actually to the newsletter real quick because I want to get this one right when it comes to crafting. They were talking about best in slot being primarily geared towards the adventurer. So I'm gonna.
Oh yeah.
So because I know we've heard about that. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So where do they want the? I think it was question was asked. How will crafted armor compare to drops and quested armor? And again, they said they wanted to keep it comparative in power between the armor, but you know, they envision that the adventurer set will put, you know, let me read this real quick. On a whole, the best armor obtained through adventuring, rare drops, epic quests will be your best in slot stuff. But I like to think it would be interesting to have a few exceptions along the way where legendary crafted item may be best. So for me, that to me tells me that we're going to see adventuring really stand out when it comes to that best in slot, which I really do like. But we're going to have that caveat of, hey, crafters, we're not leaving you out. We're going to give you some opportunities to make some stuff that can really make a difference. So potentially there's a partnership there, bringing some of my adventure gear to a crafter for them to, you know, turn it from, I don't know, steel to Codex Steel or something like that. I don't know. There's maybe some partnerships with adventuring and crafting, you know, to get those items bumped up to that legendary status. We'll have to see. But I am very excited to see that crafting is going to be included that. And most importantly, that when I'm adventuring, when I'm out there really struggling to get through a dungeon, to get through a raid, that gear is going to be very meaningful as well at the end of the day. So I'm really, really excited about that.
Well, and I do also appreciate what they've done with crafting. I think it's important that you aren't out there adventuring, fighting really hard bosses, and you're like, man, if I could just go farm slugs for 2 weeks, I could just afford best in slot gear. Why am I even doing that?
Yeah.
So I think it's nice that they've done kind of a mixture. I think crafting is going to be really useful where you're trying to gear up your friends, your guilds, just people with base armor when they hit max level, to get them started somewhere, and then they start adventuring for that stuff and helping them feel like a more useful and helpful character in a group setting where they may be with people with better gear, but at least they didn't come in with literally level 20 gear.
Yeah.
I think crafting is going to be somewhat gearing. Like I think blacksmiths and armor crafters and tailors and stuff will be kind of very more than kind of useful, very useful. But I think crafting will really, really be critical in things that are consumable and used for stuff that you can't get through adventuring. So this is a nice bone that they've thrown those crafts that will probably be more limited like that they can have that kind of an impact for characters trying to min-max. Yeah. So that's nice.
Yep. I think here is a good point to kind of mention that there was another piece to this newsletter, and guys, we're not going to mention it all. We mentioned a lot of things. We've given a lot of opinions on things as well. So be sure to go read the newsletter for yourself. Absorb the information that Joppa's given, that Justin's given, that the rest of the guys are given there. Take that information in for yourself, absorb it, have your own thoughts about it, because there's some things out there that they're not giving us all the details for. And I love that. I really do. I hope that we continue to see that trend even up into release. I would like to find some of this stuff out myself in the game versus read about it or see it on the stream beforehand. So I'm hoping that we continue to see some vagueness at some level. I don't want all the juicy details, but I love the juicy details we get now just because it's all we've got. So make sure you go read the newsletter for yourself. But Hollander's Cave, and the screenshots in this, I talked about it earlier, were mind-blowing. I think it was just, this cave, I've said it before, is one of the places that I would like to visit the most. And they've talked about it, and I think in my community spotlight I mentioned it as well. They asked me where I'd like to go. This is the place I'd like to go, and the screenshots just make me want to go there even more. I love the look of it. It looks amazing. So with that, I will say I'm gonna let you go read that piece for yourself. I want you to go read the Hollander's Cave piece for yourself. For me right now, I'm just trying to absorb it. They've got some lore in there, some pieces that are really neat about the Raken. So maybe check that out. Find out about some of the, was it drawn sickness, if I'm not mistaken? I believe that's how you say it, drawn?
Yeah, drawn.
Mm-hmm. Drawn? Okay. And I'm going to mispronounce everything all the time, so just bear with me on that. But so again, guys, go read that. Go check that out. I'm really excited to read things like that when it comes to the lore. I think from what I've seen over the last 2 months, the newsletters have really started to ramp up in information that we're getting, and they've really started to, I don't know, that they seem to really be going in the right direction. I know we had some months in the past where the newsletters were kind of hit or miss. It felt like, we got a little information, but it wasn't really anything game related. Seems like we're getting a lot more information that's directed towards the game to really help us feel like we're getting some of the questions answered that we like to see answered. So I'm really excited about the newsletters every month. I think that we're going in a really great direction with them, and I'm excited to see those continue. I believe a good buddy of mine, Ronik, is running that and heading that up, and he's doing a fantastic job with it. So I'm excited about seeing that continue. But to finalize the newsletter, we had a spotlight with 187. I know 187 is the guild leader of the Divine Council. I've talked to him a few times. We actually had a stream with him, myself and Pi. Good guys, really proud of the guild and what they're able to accomplish, and I think they're, you know, very passionate, very opinionated gamers, and that's good. And, you know, in the setting that we're in, they're giving a lot of ideas out there, very passionate about, you know, continuing to feed ideas and things of that nature. So I think you did a very good, you know, community spotlight. I think it was a really good write-up, seemed really well worded. You know, some really good stuff in there. So guys, go check that out. You know, make sure you read that piece as well. And to finalize that, I'm going to go over a few things we mentioned in the first part of the stream. So for everybody that missed the early part of the podcast, I want to end it tonight.
Before we get into that, before we close it out, I wanted to point out, guys, when you go to the newsletter and you look at the Howner Caves, which we highly recommend unless you just really don't want spoilers, one of the most stunning pictures I've seen so far of the game is on a bridge showing the Archai and what they look like, because we know that the Archai are like stone people. We know that they're an energy that has gone into the stone. They look beautiful. It looks like they're not just like a one-note color of light coming out of them. They look so multicolored and tiered, and just, it's a really striking picture. You guys will know what I'm talking about when you see it. I think we're seeing in the reflection of the female character, I think that's a female character, on the chest, I think we're seeing a reflection of either light or a torch around, or from the Archai. Like the light, the textures, the shadows I'm seeing in it, it's just so beautiful. I would highly recommend you go see it, even if you don't want to read the article, just to kind of give yourself some eye candy for what the game looks like.
Speaking of that eye candy, on the forums, I believe Ronick teased us with a little image of the Wraith as well. So if you haven't been able to get out to the forums at all, make sure you go check out the forums. There should be, you know, on there, I think it's under the news and announcement section. You should see the link there for the news, for the newsletter, letting everybody know that the March of the newsletter is out. Scroll down a little bit, you'll see I think it's 3 or 4 images of Wraiths, and they look pretty wicked. I think, yeah. So if you haven't seen those guys, make sure you go check that out as well. Really cool stuff. But again, we're going to end it tonight. I just want to go over a few more things with you, make sure that everybody's on track, make sure everyone knows what's going on for the rest of the week, because there's a lot of things coming up. We want to make sure you're staying up to date on the news. So this, again, talking about the newsletter tonight, had a blast with it. We didn't cover everything. Make sure you go read it. And then if you haven't already and you want to, and you're going to PAX East, make sure you go sign up to play with Brad and Chris at PAX East. That's going to be an opportunity of a lifetime. There's limited spots, so sign up sooner than later. You can find that on the newsletter as well. I believe it's at the bottom. They have a link for it. They also have a link for the Thursday night meet and greet. They're doing the informal meet and greet at the Asgard Irish pub. So if you haven't already done your RSVP to that and you're going, make sure you do that. That doesn't require you to have any PAX East tickets or anything of that nature. It's just show up, make sure you RSVP and show up and have a good time with the devs, Brad, and all the guys themselves. You know, I think it's going to be a great time. And then lastly, again, guys, Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, pre-alpha stream with CodeCarnage and the devs. So if you're looking to see what's going on, we want to see a little behind the doors, I'm excited about this one. I'm really excited to see what's going on, where it all has, you know, where we've come. You know, I know that I think they announced that testing in mid-December was starting through the newsletter. And, you know, again, I was excited about that, but I'm really excited to see this stream and what it looks like now. It seems like every time we see a stream with CodeCarnage, it's even better than the last time. The graphics have been updated, or there's something new to it. It's just, again, we continue to see improvements. So I'm really excited about this stream. Make sure you're standing by your computer or looking on your phone or something, watching Co and the devs, 2 p.m. Sunday, and that's Eastern Standard Time as well. And finally, guys, I know it's sad, but again, we will not be on this Friday. I know you're gonna miss us. But we're gonna. I mean, we can. So we're playing around and we're having some fun. We're gonna take a break for one, but two, I think the new EverQuest server is releasing, and we've got a bunch of people that are doing that. So we're gonna join them and have some fun with them and just have a kind of a relaxed, you know, night with a bunch of Pantheon fans and things like that. Run around old school EverQuest in a time the time lapse or expansion server that they've got going on, something like that. So It's going to be a fun time, but we're just, like I said, guys, we just want to take a break every once in a while. Want to make sure that, you know, we don't burn you out with our words on a, you know, bi-weekly basis. And, you know, it's good to take a break here and there. So we're going to take a break, spend some time with the guild and some other friends and fans of Pantheon as well. So it's going to be a fun time. And
I mean, I thought you were just going to tell him you need to refill your lungs. I didn't know you were going to tell him our personal business about EverQuest, but that's fine.
I mean, you can also send a tale to Muldoon, and he will give you all his money. So
yeah, all of it, all 7 copper.
But with that being said, we're not going to be here Friday. Then next Wednesday, if you don't know who Temmi is when it comes to lore, Temmi's somebody that I personally have watched all her videos on YouTube. I've read a lot of her posts on the forums, on the lore section itself. She puts together some really good stuff, and I have told you all multiple times I struggle with the lore. Maul has to help me all the time with figuring out what's going on within the lore. So
all the time.
So with that, I'm going to bring in somebody else so that Maul and Temmi can hopefully, with a combined effort, teach me a little bit about Pantheon lore. It's going to be a great time. We're going to go over a little bit of the overview of, you know, what's going on within the lore, and then maybe dive into a little bit of, you know, some of the newer sections that, you know, Temmi would like to discuss with us and things like that, because I'm going to have, of course, as always, I'm going to have some of those sacred questions, which I guess some people call stupid questions, but I like to call them sacred questions. And we'll be sure to ask them. That way, hopefully somebody can learn from my ignorance. But it's going to be a fun time. Post her link. Yeah, I'll make sure to post her link in the bottom of this video. So I'm going to post this video once we're done with this, guys, on YouTube. And I'll make sure to link Temmi's information as well. And don't worry, when she's here next Wednesday, we'll make sure to have all of her information posted for everyone. So no stupid questions, just stupid answers from Dragon Priest. Hey, thanks, man. Appreciate the support. Somebody's got my back out there.
Yeah, I'm excited to have her. I love talking about lore. I think both of us are going to learn so much from it. To have another person explain some things that maybe we have misperceptions on, I just can't wait. I love the lore so far in this game.
Absolutely. So, all right, guys. Well, we're running out of time here, so I'm going to go ahead and kick off the jump off the Pantheon radio and let y'all get back to the music. Appreciate y'all tuning in on Pantheon Radio as always. And for everybody on stream, y'all are more than welcome to hang out. If not, then thank you for showing up for the podcast tonight. And, you know, we'll see you next time. Thanks, everyone.
See you guys. Bye.
All right, Pantheon Radio shut down.